We all know someone from our workplace who thinks of themselves as somewhat of a GIF lord, someone who manages to find the perfect GIF reply to everything and ease everyone's tense days. While this may seem like innocent fun, a recent exploit on Microsoft Teams makes it a serious concern. Let's take a deeper look into what that's about. Starting, Microsoft Teams GIFs were exploited. It might have seemed friendly at first, but a recent report from Bleeping Computers explored the possibility of an exploit in seemingly harmless GIF software. The exploit in it can use them to install not just malicious files, but also perform commands and even steal data just by sending a GIF of a cat to another user. The new attack chain was recently discovered by Bobby Rauch, a cybersecurity expert who concluded that the chain had exposed multiple vulnerabilities in Teams. If used together, they can be used to steal data, and all they have to do is send a GIF. This was then shared with Bleeping Computer. Since then, this has been recognized as a major threat for many businesses that were reliant on using the software. The flaw can in turn make use of other existing exploits in the system and make it relatively easy to bypass Microsoft's security controls. These GIFs could then lead users to download dangerous files from external URLs rather than the intended file, making everyone a possible victim. Moreover, how does it work? Thankfully, the process does have a few steps and won't immediately affect us. Firstly, the intended target needs to install a stager that's meant to execute commands sent by the GIF. And considering that phishing attacks are somehow still successful in 2022, it wouldn't be that unlikely, especially since to the user, they're coming from a trusted source, that is their workplace, and is an easy mistake to make. Once this process is complete and chat logs are scanned by the stager, opening up the image would extract a very specific base64 code. It'll start running and extract the text that would point back to one of the team's remote GIFs that are embedded in its survey cards. Because of how this works, it can then connect back to the attacker trying to retrieve the file, which in turn allows them to further decode the file and gain access to other pre-existing exploits. This process does take multiple pre-existing exploits in the software to work. We can expect a fix coming from Microsoft pretty soon. A simple change to where logs are located or how it receives GIFs may be enough to throw any attackers off and stop them in their tracks. But for now, at least we have a legit reason to finally tell some people to stop sending us the weirdest GIFs ever. Furthermore, all software is bound to have some flaws. CyberArk further came out saying that they notified the team at Microsoft about this exploit on the 23rd of March, right when lockdown procedures began in the UK, with a patch coming out for it this week. As of yet, there's no evidence that the exploit was ever used by cyber criminals or anyone of the sort. They also continued to warn about similar attacks that could be faced by other platforms in the future. Professor Alan Woodward from the University of Surrey says that these kinds of exploits aren't something new and have been seen multiple times before, especially since applications continuously fail to follow important checks while getting content from servers across the world, and in this case, from harmless GIFs. While its attack pattern may not be the easiest to set up, it's very much a workable one and can be spread between all users at a high speed. This could also be one of those rare exploits that are used to attack high-value targets instead of just a random person. Woodward then proceeded to talk about this event, showing just how data, no matter how harmless it may seem, if used in a web-based app, can then be used to sneak parts of code onto a machine and do tasks not even users are authorized for. It's also a good demonstration to us of how so-called zero-click attacks can work, and everyone needs to be cautious about opening suspicious links or documents. All software is bound to have some security flaws now and then, taking us back to basic advice to always keep yours fully updated. Lastly, is Teams safe to use? While the company may have decided to not treat Rauch's findings as an urgent matter, there are still a few things users can do to stay safe. First of all, we should always be cautious of any images or messages that tell us to click, open immediately, or even call, or just avoid clicking on any links in general. Though this may not be enough, so using a VPN, making sure everything is updated, and has multi-factor authentication enabled is always a plus. Some people might want to consider investing in malware protection software, though at a performance cost. simply hovering over a sent link to see if the address matches the link works as well. The faults exposed by Rauch and his team's research may be something to be cautious about. All web conferencing software is prone to similar instances. Comparatively, Teams is still the best choice and has regular updates, making sure you're able to ensure your system is always as safe as possible, though there are always other options out there. Other news. Coming up, Microsoft brings zero trust to hardware in Windows 11. For the past couple of years, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon have been working alongside the US federal government trying to improve cybersecurity, keeping in mind to always place zero trust on hardware. This comes off as no surprise since all three of them are the biggest cloud service providers. They're probably the best positioned institutions that can help in preventing cyber attacks. But Microsoft seems to be taking it a step further with security measures so their rivals don't stand a chance. They're targeting firmware as well. Exploits in firmware for CPUs, printers, and a lot of hardware can potentially open up routes to corporate networks. TrickBot, Moonbounce, and LoJax are just some of the many worms that could find their way into the silicon and would be very difficult to get rid of. Hardware root of trust is a starting point that is trusted without question. For a PC, it would be the part that checks the BIOS to make sure it's not faulty before a launch. But anyone who's ever had to remove malware from it knows just how important it is. Microsoft is aiming to stop such attacks before they even have a chance to start disrupting systems. Moving on, Microsoft's CEO talks about remote work. After 3 years into deep work-from-home company transformations, it's become really obvious that remote work is a better option for some things and then worse for others. If your work is based more on execution, study after study shows that nothing beats working remotely. Though if we're trying to collaborate creatively or talking about a company's culture and unwritten rules to new employees, it poses a lot of problems. Most might believe that if you're working from a distance, technology trumps all. Webinars and wikis making up for a much better transfer of knowledge, and you aren't going to get a lot done unless you log on to the company's server or Zoom. Well, a certain level of tech readiness is very important to smooth functioning remote work and hiring. Microsoft found that it wasn't the tech that made it work, it was the people who felt safer, had more energy, and could truly focus on work. It may sound like a lot of work for some team leaders, but CEO Nadella claims that it's the only possible way to create a strong bond between teams and new members. If meeting in person isn't an option, that companies need to put their money where their mouth is and try to build better managerial capabilities. Finally, Microsoft responds to Surface Duo 2 discontinuation rumors. In a recent article by Windows Central, the company talked about how on its first anniversary, the Microsoft Surface Duo 2 was still nowhere to be found. Local stores reported that the specialized kiosks of the device were coming down and inventory everywhere was depleted, even at the company's flagship store. Speculations point toward them pulling it back until the Android 12L drops by in the coming weeks. However, the possibility of production being on halt due to a lack of sales can never be ruled out. Since then, Microsoft has responded to Windows Central about where the device stands, and turns out it's some good news. They stated that one of the biggest impacts on it has been supply constraints and the product is nowhere near being discontinued. They've been working on how to make it better in the meantime, and are excited by the number of people interested in getting one. Supply constraints do make sense though, since all the components in the device are custom made, everything from the hinges to its board design. That's a wrap for this video. Would you still be using Teams? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.